Hi everyone, welcome to yet another B.NET Wednesday Hangout. B.NET Wednesday Hangout is an initiative by Bangalore.NET user group where we try to get in speakers every Wednesday and meet up between 9 to 10 p.m. And then talk about a developer related topic. And the webinar or the webinar is streamed live to YouTube, and you can watch all the previous recordings from the B.NET YouTube channel. The URL to watch the videos is youtube.com/b.net TV. And for today's session, we have Karthikeyan Anbarasan, who's going to talk about new security features for developers in Windows Phone 8.1. Karthikeyan is a Microsoft MVP in client dev and is also a Nokia developer champion from Bangalore, and he has close to 10 years of industry experience. And without wasting much time, I hand over the session to Karthik.
Thanks, Sindhil. Good evening, everyone. So as Sindhil has already given introduction about this, to give us a brief, so I am B.NET and a founder of Federated.NET, and also a Microsoft MVP in Windows platform, and OK developer champion as well. So these are my coordinates. So the agenda for today's call is basically try to understand what are the new security features that has been recently released by Microsoft for Windows Phone 8.1. So this session will be more on discussing about the features. We don't have much of a demo kind of a thing where most of the new security features that lies over the enterprise. So I don't have a real connect over to the enterprise to show you the demo, but a little bit of the feature level code demo that I want to show it. And at the end of the session, we'll have a Q&A. If you have any questions in between, definitely you can post the Q&A onto the panel over there so that I can take it at that point. Okay, so I don't want to speak more about Windows Phone. I know overall they're watching this video, they know about Windows Phone. It's like the Windows Phone, the mobile platform for Microsoft. Apart from that, I don't want to speak anything over here. So straight away to the Windows Phone security. So from where the security starts, basically. So it's like the security of the Windows Phone start from its hardware. The OEMs, the hardware that has been manufactured by different OEM providers. So it starts from there. So the features basically based on trusted boot, which is a feature that the platform security of the hardware will start out. As the name has given, the trusted boot, basically it has all the code that is running in the the Windows Phone device. It starts from the click of the button, power button, till you install your apps and run the apps onto the phone. Everything that will be involved in the trusted boot. So the flow from the platform security till you get onto the app services like this. So it's like the first the ROM that plays a major role in booting the environment. So ROM, which is basically the read-only memory of the phone. So it starts right away from the chip that has been manufactured till it has some internal specialized blocks which has all the programmable memory and also sections of the memory in the chip. Followed by is the bootloader, which basically a piece of code which looks around in turning off the device, validating the device, and see if there is any hacking that has been done on the initial loading of the operating system. If there is a tampered environment in the operating system, everything will be loaded and moved into the bootloader. Followed by that is a UEFI, which is a standardized mechanism across the mobile platform for authenticating the secure boot, which Microsoft loads a certificate, check over the secure boot if everything has been authenticated and the process has been maintained. If there is any process phase that happens in this authentication mechanism, right away there will be a system flow block which will not proceed further in booting your complete operating system. Followed with the UEFI is the Windows Boot Manager. So it basically have a database in it which has all the keys that has referred to the UEFI stores into the boot manager. So it looks over with each and every key whether the key has been certified and the signature has been maintained onto each and every modules, which validates and pushes the flow there is a base operating system which where the Windows Phone runs on. So it contains all the components basically that are required to run smoothly in the Windows Phone operating system. The components which basically involved services. This flow maintains the security in each level. So if there is a tampering happens in any level, it will further not allow the process to complete a process onto the next environment. So once the kernel has been loaded correctly, then comes app services, where normally any third-party apps or the inbuilt apps, anything that goes over with the operating system, that will be loaded completely on the app services part. So with this platform security, the code that has been running, the code that is from the operating system or from the third-party developers or anything that has been running onto the platform, everything is verified and it has been put onto the TPM, which is called as trusted platform model, a basic standard that the security has been followed with the hardware. So in Windows Phone 8, the device protection model uses the TPM to encrypt and store the keys everywhere and everything that is required to run the application into the hardware. So this is how the security flows right from the beginning of Windows Phone 8. This is not specific to Windows Phone 8.1, but this is how the Windows Phone operating system gets booted on, gets loaded. The next one which we more concerned about is the application security. Mainly, so it's like the application security, all the apps which has been included in the operating system. It's not specifically for the third-party apps, but rather even the apps like email, inboxes, and the browsers, the music app, emails, everything that has been sandboxed at least with the least privilege into a container called as an app container. So this app container is basically something like an isolation technology for Windows Phone. It provides an environment for your apps to work without killing the other apps because of an issue with one particular app. Say, for example, if there is an app that has been a third-party app, let it be, so which has some specific capabilities that should require to run the app, like an internet, or it requires a navigation, or it requires some other capability. It should not break or it should not stop the other apps to work, since we have a parallel processing where I can have an app that runs in the background and I can use other apps as well. So in this way, the app container will have the sandbox environment separately for each and every application level, so that it saves or stores the information about the particular app onto the local isolated storage. And the second security comes in the capabilities part. So capabilities, as I already mentioned, normally if you use a particular component or particular logic onto your application, like a location map, music, whichever way we want. So there should be a capability that should be enabled, because by default the operating system don't want to take all the capabilities for each and every application, because some of the apps require a minimum capability, some requires different other capabilities. Like an app with a navigation doesn't require a music capability, or the music app doesn't require a location capability. So it's like for the specific to the app, the capability should be selected and it should be used. As a developer, it's been suggested or it's been taken over to minimize the capabilities for two reasons, we can say. So one is the main reason we can say is when we need to run the app in least privileged environment. Say I want to have my app running on a very low end device, so that the isolation mode will not get not affected. It will be available onto the particular application app container module. So it gives us a very least environment. So we don't want more capabilities to get involved into that storage, which has a possibility of coming down with the performance and also on the security level. Second is it takes time to install the application. Basically, when we have a lot of capabilities involved, it takes time to install the application. install the application which increases the flow, which increases the user, the restriction to use the app. So this is just a suggestion which try to avoid communication methodology to communicate between the apps. So these are the places where we can think of an application security to avoid putting more the constraints onto the app. So with this kind of an app model, avoiding all these
Karthik, you there? Yes, I think there is some issue with the voice. Yeah, you can continue, Karthik. I think you're back now. Yeah. Hello. Uh, Karthik, there is no voice. Can you just check that? Yeah. Can you continue, Karthik? I think it's okay now.
Okay. I mean, if there's anything, just drop me on that so that I will. To continue with, so it's like the Windows Phone goals where Microsoft has really looked into before they releasing the SDK for Windows Phone 8.1. So these are some of the goals that have been focused on is to minimize the amount of time that the user has needs to re-enter the credentials. So basically, the credentials have been not being managed onto the device specific. So each and every app that uses the same amount of user credential to authenticate onto a particular service. So it's like we need to keep on logging in with the credentials for each and every app. So that has been the primary goal to have a single level of isolation where the credentials are not being asked in all the applications that has been used. And second is on the developer specific to providing a rich converged security programming model. This is very specific on providing a model where all the the authenticated informations are being stored in a secure environment. So it's like take an example in Windows Phone. We have an browser which is IE. So it doesn't have in the till Windows Phone 8, it doesn't have an option to store your passwords basically, like we do in normal laptop or a desktop. So it's like each and every time you need to put in your credentials and log in. But with this Windows Phone 8.1, they have been provided an option to store the passwords. So there will be a pop-up which asks you whether you want to store the password or if you want to cancel and proceed further. We can do that as per your convenience. And all and maybe the other thing is on a single sign-on. So where there are the multiple APIs that has been provided by Microsoft 8.1, the SDK for the developers to have a single channel for the social network, basically Facebook, Twitter, and everything, using a couple of new APIs that has been released with SDK. So one of the main security feature that has been provided is the web authentication, which is where you write your code for one platform and use it across a security environment. I mean, basically for connecting to multiple services. So take an example like Facebook, Twitter, I mean, a Flickr service or a Google service. So where we need to keep connecting from our application to the online services to get the data, to post the data. So with the web authentication, the authentication API, the authentication lies in such a way the identity provider typically uses the OAuth mechanism. So right now in all the development, the OAuth plays a major role when we want to do an authentication and authorization. That has been followed with the Windows Phone development as well, where we can use OAuth indefinitely to do a communication to the online services and get back the information from the online services or to post information to the online services. So OAuth is a protocol basically where authorization request, URL level request to the online services. It returns back with a login page where you need to input your information, basically a one-time information that authenticates the service on to get back the to get back the request. So the user puts authentication. I mean, basically the login and the authorization page. I mean, the page comes out. So it's like
Karthik, you there? Uh, Karthik, you there? I think the screen sharing is lost. Can you just have a look at that again?
Sandil, able to hear me?
I'm able to hear you now, but the screen sharing is gone now. Can you share the screen again? Yes, we are able to see the screen now. Yeah.
Okay, I think I got lost in this screen. So let me start back with the same one. So this is how the auth normally works out. The From the app, the authorization request goes to the online services, basically a URL where the online service returns back with a login page where we need to input our login credential, normally Facebook username password or a Twitter username password, where the credentials are posted back to the online services, which authenticates the request and get back an authorization page. In that authorization page, the user decides what step that they need to provide, whether they are allowing the app to use the online services to get the data, or they want to restrict the online services to a particular information that should be shared across. Everything depends on the user decision. Once the user decides, the authorization token has been sent back to the app, where the token can be used to access the data anytime. So this is how the what normally works out. So major problem is if you need an app which uses an online services to communicate to the service. Take an example, like two apps need to do the same process. So it's like we need to input the user credentials for the one app, do the process, then go back to the second app and again do the process of inputting the credentials, get back the authentication process again. But with this, the web authentication provider, we can have it as a single place where the single credentials, it goes, stores the information, and gives the information, and no need to provide your user credentials for each and every app. So the credentials are now, it's not stored on the isolation level. It do inconsistent experience basically. So this way it avoids inputting your the online credentials each and every time to the application. So what are the common problems which we focus now? So the same thing. So it avoids that. It has no single sign-on, no the credentials on the isolation level, no inconsistent experience. So each app has a different uh, user experience. One app will do an OAuth login, the other app do the same process with some other mechanism. So there is no a consistent user experience. And if your device is a low memory device, definitely it's going to make a big mess where with this low memory situations, getting an update right from the online services or posting an update to the online services is going to be a little tricky over here. So these are some of the common problems which has been giving Microsoft a boost over looking on providing an alternate option for the Windows Phone 8.1 SDK. So the Windows, the web authentication process uses the web authentication and authentication broker, which is called WAB, to authenticate the OAuth identity and make use of the web authentication to connect to the online services for processing the request. So the benefits, so the common problems which we already had, those have been already rectified here. Like a single sign-on has been implemented, a simple API where 4 or 5 steps we can connect to the service, get back the information, and that isolation level connection storage that is available. So to use this API, so there's a namespace that should be used, which is windows.security.authentication.web. With this, we can use this namespace, try all the APIs that has been available. And to be specific, these APIs are more optimized to handle the low memory situations as well. So this has been initially tried with Windows 8. So when they started releasing the Windows authentication code, that was first tried with Windows 8, and our success, it has been moved on to Windows 8.1. You see the list of features that has been from the security point that has been integrated for Windows Phone 8.1. Everything has been tried with Windows 8. Um, so the process of, as I already mentioned, the authentication process of one app, the other app also uses the same authentication level. So these are the basic advantages that the Windows authentication broker provides. So let's have a small demo where I don't want to again write all the basic stuff. I just go over the authentication process for I just run the application. So meanwhile, I'll just explain you what the web authentication that does over here. So this is a small piece of code where it tries and connect to Facebook and do a Facebook on authentication using the web authentication broker. So normally Facebook, Twitter, or Google services, it requires a client ID and a passcode to pass it and to do the authentication with the OAuth. I'm not going to give that over here. So yeah, okay, still it's been loading. So this is the web authentication broker where I'm just passing the URI, the start URI and end URI, which is basically I'm just indicating my client ID and the password. So Just give me a second, the emulator is loading. Okay. So the web authentication broker authenticates by giving the start URA, end URA, and the authentication methodology, and waits for the authentication request. So based on the request, it see whether it's been success or it has been errored out due to some other reason, maybe an HTTP error or some other error. Some issue. Okay, so let's go over this. So once see that the success, I mean there is a success. So it gets the, I mean, basically the token which can be used to to get the, I mean, to communicate back to the online services and get the response data, basically a user data or some specific data that has been declared. So this is where the response status has been checked. The web authentication result, it's checked whether the status is success or failed out. If it is success, an output token has been used from the response data and do a sync call to get the Facebook username, user details basically with the response data, which is, I mean, the output token. So this is the same process that has almost the same that has been used to um, uh, process for the Google, so the Google online services as well. So that, I mean, as you see the code, the web authentication provider which do an authentication first and get the result back, then checks for the response whether it's a success or a failure. If it's a success, then post on to, to the output token to do whatever you want with the output token. And Twitter, the same process. So gets the data and do an output token and get the Twitter account information. I'm not sure, there is some issue in loading this application. I'll try it out once, otherwise let's proceed to the other one and we'll look into that at the last. I'm just trying with this application from today morning, so I just did something over here. So maybe we'll do that at the last once we cover all the other slides. The second feature which I want to speak more on is on the Microsoft account. So basically, this is where the Windows Phone 8.1 update has made a large impact with the security model. So in all the apps, I mean, which require Microsoft user ID, basically I can say an Outlook ID, a Live ID, or a Microsoft account itself. So the Microsoft accounts plays a primary identity provider for Windows Phone now. I mean, anyway, if anyone has a Windows Phone, the first step is to put in your Microsoft account ID and do the I mean, the authentication to sync up your data or whatsoever we have been using. So with this ID, we can have a consistent user, I mean, data share across the multiple devices, maybe the data that has been on the store apps or on the Xbox or many other apps. So this feature, again, it's a new API call, so it has this is again a single sign-on that has been introduced here. To use this Microsoft account, we need to use Windows security authentication.online ID. So with this, we can, I mean, provide the same level of authentication with other online services like Facebook, Twitter, and the Google provides. So what are the benefits that Microsoft account provides is the major benefit which we can speak across is the data roaming. So we don't have previously with the Windows Phone SDK. With this Windows Phone accounts, we can have a data roaming part where the system stores the data onto roaming folder that will be used across the multiple devices. There may be a Windows Phone or a Windows 8. So wherever it has been required, the data roaming concept takes over and the data can be used between the devices. And to be specific, the developer no need to have much control over that. It is everything has been readily available. Just use it to save the data and it will be available. Second is the MSA speak of the Microsoft secure account process, where the user experience and the security plays a very major role. So there are some situations where you have a suspicious login that has been happening on your account. Maybe you are sitting in one place, you have logged in, and there is another user that has been trying to access your account. By default, Microsoft the SDK provides an option to do a two-step authentication if the system predicts there is a suspicious login. It automatically enables the two-step authentication where the login, one more level of authentication steps in. So this is also done by its own. So this level of security provides end user with a much more enhanced environment. Okay, so from the API level, these are three options we can use with the Microsoft Secure account. It's like the online ID we can use, basically the account, the Microsoft account ID, using the namespace which have been provided in the previous slide. So you can use the namespace and I mean access the method to put your MS account, do a verification, get the token, and process back your request. Or we can use the web authentication broker, which we have seen in the first feature. So we can use a web authentication broker again to do an online service kind of a request, which we normally do for Facebook, Twitter, or Google Service. But preferred one is using the online ID. We can directly have the inbuilt methods to communicate and get back the Microsoft specific account. And the final one is the live SDK. So this has been available in the previous versions as well. So where we can use the online ID again internally to access the online services, get authenticated in the process. The other feature which the Windows Phone SDK 8.1 has is the credentials basically. So it's credentials, this is very important when we want to have local credential storage. So it uses CredLocker concept over here, which is an API which is there already available with Windows 8. So if you see all these things that has been already used in Windows 8 that has been now available with Windows Phone 8.1. So with this, we can use to store securely with the app the information, and can use the credential roam between the trusted devices specifically, not all the devices. If you have a trusted devices that can be used, that can use this the credential locker to share the information. And again, this happens automatically, so there is no a kind of development coding or programming required to maintain all these. So the credential locker can be used with the namespace Windows.security.credentials, and password vault is a class that has been that should be used to access the credential that can be stored onto local storage or on the roaming storage as well. Benefits, so roaming via the Microsoft account, so it will be roamed across the multiple trusted devices, and it has a very secure storage. So let's see a small demo on the password as well. So this is how we can have I mean we can store the password vault information onto an application. So I just created a password vault class. I just use the namespace which I already mentioned, and using the vault I'm just adding the resource name, the username, and password. So with this, it stores onto the running folder where I can retrieve at any point what are the credentials I have been used. I can use the multiple ways of retrieving where I can use a username specific to, uh, to collect the information, or a resource specific, whichever way of retrieving the information about the password, we can do that. And if you want to remove that, we can do that as well. These are the method that has been available, so we can use it to store the password and also to retrieve the password as and when required. This can be more useful when we have a specific user level authentication, role based user level authentication, that they want to store the password, the credentials internally. So we can use this kind of methodology to store the password and get it used. The next feature which I want to speak on is the cryptography. The name specifies cryptography, doing all kind of encoding, decoding the process one. So this is again which is already there in the Windows platform that has been now available in Windows Phone 8.1 as well. To use the cryptography feature, we need to use the windows.security.cryptography.core, and it has a lot of algorithms inbuilt. So these are a few of the algorithms which has been shared over here. There are multiple other algorithms. It has a very big list, I can say. So we can use any of the algorithm to do a cryptography, encoding process as and when required. And again, it's again an API call based on the library that has been available. So we can use that to the kind of a encrypting mechanism we want and get it validated. So for using the cryptography, we need to have the certificates in place. So where there is always a question like client-side authentication is always available or not. With the Windows Phone 8.1, the client-side authentication is readily available. With the previous version, the client-side authentication was not given. So that's why the focus has been changed, and they have included the client-side authentication as well. Where we need to enroll the certificate, generate the key, assign the key, everything will be done over here. So those are the major features that the certificates provide over here. And the SSL validation, which has been restricted the previous ones. Then we make a call to the service, additional validations, another process not made possible. But these are things that has been available with the Windows Phone 8.1 SDK. The very important feature which normally for the enterprise they want to see is on the virtual smart card. Basically, now the focus has more changed in a way that what exactly we can do with the authentication for the enterprise or even for the consumer level. So the virtual smart cards are the very major thing where it has already been available in Windows 8 and now in Windows Phone 8.1. So it's like an hardware level authentication. Basically, normally we do a software level authentication, so not device specific thing. But with the virtual smart cards, we can do an hardware specific hardware based authentication. It normally follows two-factor authentication, where when the data which we have to authenticate the process. I'll show the architecture basically. So this is how we normally think of. So with the two-factor authentication, we know what we basically know to authenticate and what you have to authenticate. So what you know is basically the PIN, the credential, basically using a password that has been available to authenticate. But otherwise, what you have in hand, maybe a VPN token or something kind of thing which we normally use for the device-specific authentication. So with right now with the virtual smart cards, we can use the smart card or the device to authenticate and log into the enterprise environment. So basically, where we can use the virtual smart cards is basically these are some of the places, some of the core areas where the virtual smart cards can be used, like remote access, normally the VPNs, the VPN access code which we normally have, and this is a very particular thing where the enterprise will clearly look in on the security perspective. Second is on bring your own device. So if you want to use your own device onto the enterprise, then virtual smart cards plays a major role where we can use a device to log in and do whatever we want onto the enterprise. Other few things like logging onto the PC, do an SSL authentication, a secure email authentication, doing an encryption for the data, everything. So in all these places, we can use the virtual smart cards. The two-factor authentication is something which now all the way we have been focusing on. It's like for credentials, we can do an export from one phone unless the certificates are not being used on other device, basically. So this is the smart card life cycle where the first step of creating a smart card, do a provisioning by putting on the admin pin, everything, admin the credentials for the first time. Then use the credentials to do log into the environment where you can do again pin reset or change pin reset everything. And if you want, as a reverse way, we can go ahead and delete the complete basically the pin that has been authenticated, so that a new pin can be created. So this is like for each and every user when they want to get out of the enterprise, when they want been moved out of the enterprise, they want to get rid of the particular the smart card enabled device. So this way lifecycle covers each and every step in creating and enabling the product. The next one is which I want to speak on the simple a sample flow, which speaks about I mean how the smart the smart card flows, the process flows from the app level to the server level in the enterprise. So basically, the first step will be on when the smart card has been used, a smart card has been created for the device specific. An admin key, a default admin key, which is known to the server, has been required, which normally the IT admins provide. So once the key has been passed on to the server, so basically it diversifies the admin key and updates the server inventory that there is a request that comes from a virtual smart card. So the response goes back to the device where in the form of a certificate which retrieves the information about the server, what are the the required information that has been required for the virtual smart card to process. So it's like a proof that has been required by the server to process the request. Once the certificate has been received on the server backend, the server basically in the enterprise, so it takes care of setting up the pin for the first time, which will be sent back to the Windows Phone, a device specifically. Say. So with that, we can connect to the complete list of the process with enterprise applications, or as an admin, you can restrict the user to use a particular level of apps as well when they are into the environment and the enterprise environment, restricting them to avoid using the other apps like with the enterprise environment. Normally, they don't want to use a Facebook app, or they don't want to use a chat application or something. So those apps can be blocked as well. So these are the things where by the the initial stage the admin can set up with the enterprise. So this is a simple step on creating an API for the virtual smart card, where we have the smart card provisioning class and an async method to retrieve the card information. So basically, we need these are inputs. Like I already mentioned, admin key is very much important for the first time processing the virtual smart card. Uh, a friendly name, a GUI ID for the card, the PIN policy. These are things where admin gives initial stage to proceed with connecting to the enterprise. So this is a simple C# code for the card creation. So internally, the virtual smart card uses the cryptography methodology to do the encryption for the security. So the smart card PIN policy creates the policy request, speaks with the server directly, and gets a response whether the smart card device has been activated or it has not been activated or not. This way, we can connect and get the information. The first level of authentication. After that, we can do a lot other things with I mean creating a user. Deleting, or if you want to do some other ways of retrieving information on the policy-based information, everything that can be done over here. So with the smart cards, it's like it has some internal containers where all the certificate that has been required for the enterprise that will be stored into the container. So with this specific container, we can store information onto the device specific, where we can use it for
Karthik, I think you're lost again. Can you check the audio? Sorry, folks, there is some technical glitch out here, so give us a few minutes time so that we can resolve the issue.
Uh, Civil?
Yes, Karthik, so you're back now?
Yeah, I'm not sure. There is some network issue. Sorry.
Sure.
So I'm not sure where I got started. So that was my last slide where I was explaining about the code snippet for the virtual card creation. So this way, as I mentioned, we can we need, and basically we store the keys onto the container, and that's where all the certificate that has been required for the container, everything will be maintained internally with the device, so that the virtual smart cards, when they want to opt out, when they have a delete request to get all this container will be completely gone from the device. So from that point, the virtual smart cards will not have an option to speak to the enterprise server and get back the request on the policies and other things. So these are some of the features where, security levels features I can say with Windows Phone 8.1 that has been released a couple of a month before I can say. So if you have any questions, feel free to ping me or you can let me know in the panel, the Q&A panel. Civil, if there is any questions, you can let me know.
Yeah, Karthik, so there are no questions until now, so should be fine. And is there I have a small question. Is there a way where I can know more about the security features? Are there any resources? Karthik, can you share the screen? I think you're lost again.
Yes, everything is already available with Windows 8.1 for the store apps. The same applies for Windows Phone 8.1 as well, the core concept. But I don't see any ready to use samples that has been available before. Um, the MSDN resources are pretty okay for the Windows Phone,
Karthik,
Windows
can you share
8.1.
the screen? I think we are not able to see the screen.
Okay.
Yes.
So, for the code samples, we don't have any specific one, as you already mentioned. So, it's like we have the Windows 8.1 code samples. We can use those for the web authentication broker and, for the password vault and anything. That applies same for Windows Phone 8.1 as well.
Okay.
Um, Apart from that, I think no specific resource that has been available for this. And yeah, yes, Sandeep, if you have any questions, to me.
Yeah, and I think there is one question here. Like, does it is it supported in from both Silverlight 8.1 runtime as well as Windows runtime as well, or is there any restrictions on that?
No, there is no specific restrictions over here. This has been available for the Windows Phone SDK completely. We can use it across both the templates.
Okay.
So when I'll share this slide so that maybe in our Facebook thing so that anyone can download this slide. Also, I'll put the sample code which I showcase over here. So it has some code break where store.
Okay, okay, folks. So we will try to share the slide, the PPT, as well as the sample code that was used during our Hangout session in our Facebook group. We'll do that maybe in few days time, maybe by tomorrow or something. And thanks, Karthik, for an interesting session on security, new security features in Windows Phone 8.1. We really appreciate your time for our developer community here, and we hope to see in more future events too.
Sure.
And
Thanks, Indian. So
yeah.
thanks for others attending the session.
Yes. So thanks everyone for attending the session, and our next Hangout session is been scheduled for next Wednesday. That's 9th July, with another interesting topic. We'll keep you posted about the topic in some time. So keep watching our Facebook group, the B.NET Facebook group. That's where we interact more frequently about these events and a lot of other things. And you can watch these videos in our YouTube channel. That's the URL is youtube.com/. And until our next Wednesday Hangout, we are signing off. Thank you, everyone.